Well, I've been trying to record this video for the past week, but every time I get down here in the woods, it starts pouring down rain, and I just really hate to do video of something indoors when it pertains to the outdoors. That's just me. But anyway, it's quit raining for a little while now, so I'm going to try to pull this off. And before I get started, I wanted to give a few shout outs, mainly to my subscribers that have helped me build this channel up steadily over the past year when I went online with it, and I appreciate every one of you. And some of you have even stopped by my place of business there in Ada and visited with me and said hello, and to all of you guys, it's very nice meeting you. Hope you'll stop by again sometime. But this video here is in a regard mostly to some questions that were asked to me on the No Such Thing podcast episode that I was on recently with Cornell. And for y'all that follow this channel, y'all know Cornell has come down here a couple of times, and I've taken him down to the Comanche Mountains on some expeditions and such. But this is on some of the questions that people typed in to me when I was on that show. And one of the most common questions that people ask me, whether it's in emails or just in person, and I'll just word it the way that and I wrote it down on paper, because if I don't, I'll get sidetracked on something. But one of the most common questions, and one of the people that asked it on the podcast worded it this way. He said, and I quote, "Are they dangerous, or can we sit down and sing Kumbaya with them?" Well, and I'll answer that in a couple of ways. I'll answer it using a couple of historical accounts that should be familiar to most of us, and from my own personal experience. But as far as the Kumbaya, singing that with us, I don't think that would do any good, because they probably don't know the words to it. But anyway, do I think they're dangerous? And keeping in mind, I'm going to answer this based on mostly my own personal experiences and the encounters that I've investigated over the last over 2 decades. And that's really the best I can do, because I can give other people's opinions and such, but that's their opinions, and mine's going to be based on personal experience. But I will say this: are they dangerous? Well, I think we have to look at it as they could potentially be, because of the size of these creatures, the stealth that they obviously demonstrate. But anyway, to start with, I want to go back to on the dangerous part to a couple of old accounts that go back, well, even the newest one's 100 years ago, but the oldest one it was recorded in a book by Teddy Roosevelt called Wilderness Hunter, that he wrote in, I believe it's 1893, by a trapper that talked to him at that time, who was an old man at this time. So that would have put this incident in the early to mid 1800s. Then his trapper's name was Bauman, and they were in a very remote part of Idaho, him and his trapping partner, and they were beaver trapping. And when they would go out and check their traps, they set up their camp first, built the lean-to, as was very common. And when they would come back from checking their traps in the evening, they would find their camp completely demolished, their lean-to tore down, stuff strewn everywhere, and they just, alluded that to a bear, which, was the most likely explanation. And then they would go check their traps the next day, come back, same thing. All their stuff would be strewn around, their lean-to would be torn down. And that evening, they both figured it was a bear. Bauman's partner went out with a torch and was looking at the one of the footprints that this creature left behind, and he told Bauman, he said, "This bear's walking on 2 legs," which gave them cause for concern, obviously. So anyway, these were 2 tough old trappers. They were used to living in the wilderness, not scared of much, I would imagine. So they turned in to go to sleep that night, and at night they woke up and saw this large form standing in the opening of their lean-to. And I forget which one actually did it, but one of them grabbed his rifle, aimed at it, and fired a shot, which sent it screaming off, running. But the rest of the night, it was on the other side of this beaver pond, pacing back and forth in the woods, making an awful racket, screaming and such as that. So the next day they get up, they decide time to get out of here. And I'm paraphrasing this, but I know this story by heart for a long time. They decide to get out of there, so they go and they check their traps, come back, and they've got another couple of traps up the other direction, and Bauman tells his partner, you start tearing down camp, I'm going to go up here and check our other traps. So he goes, checks them, and he comes back. He finds the body of his partner stretched out on the other side of a log, dead from, I believe, is a broken neck. And the way Teddy Roosevelt said, there were 4 large fang marks in his throat. His neck was broken. And I'm just going to quote from Wilderness Hunter the way Teddy put this into words. He said, it had not eaten the body, but apparently had romped and gamboled round it in uncouth, ferocious glee, occasionally rolling over and over it, and had then fled back into the soundless depths of the woods. So Bauman got out of there quick, went back, found where they had hobbled the mules, and he got out of there, leaving the body of his friend there. So that's one very old one. Another one, fast forward to the early 1900s, 1921 to be exact, in Washington State, in an area to one side of Mount St. Helens called Ape Canyon. And this is the incident that got it called Ape Canyon. There were a group of miners there, and this was told much later by a man named Fred Beck, who was one of the 2, as far up in the 1960s, one of the 2 trappers, or not trappers, I'm sorry, one of the 2 miners that were surviving, and he was the only one that would want to talk about it. But his name was Fred Beck, and he told this story. There were a group of miners mining in this area that would be called Ape Canyon, and while they were going about their business, going to and from, they had a cabin that they had built there, and when they were going back and forth to the mine, they reported that they were seeing these creatures, and they didn't call them, they called them mountain devils, if I remember correctly. And they would see them, watching them from the woods, shadowing them, not attacking, not doing anything aggressive, but just watching them. One of them shot at one time, missed. Another time, Fred took his rifle and shot one. I think he shot it more than once, and it tumbled over the edge of a cliff into the canyon below. Now that night, their cabin was attacked by a group of these creatures, throwing rocks onto the top of the cabin, jumping on it themselves, trying to rip into it. They didn't get in. The next day, they fled, told the authorities. The authorities saw the shape the cabin was in, the footprints around it, and so forth. So that was told by Fred Beck. The other one, the older one, was by Teddy Roosevelt in his book, Wilderness Hunter, which you can buy Wilderness Hunter if you want to read that account firsthand. So lest we too quickly say that these were just evil creatures, there's one thing that both of these incidents had in common. Both times the people involved either shot at or shot one of these creatures. Now that seemed to have led to the attacks that occurred later. Now that doesn't mean these are not dangerous creatures, just that those 2 historical accounts, they were shot at first. There's other old accounts that I cannot verify. I'm getting a lot of these people asking me about the Choctaw Wars in LaFleur County with Bigfoots back in 1855. That's a story that I never heard till fairly recently, so I cannot verify that or deny it. But I will say I know several Choctaw natives that are historians that can verify that for me. All that I've found so far is, yes, there was that man LaFleur. I think his name was Joshua LaFleur, and he did die in 1855, but there's nothing in the writings that he had his head ripped off by a Bigfoot. I'll check into that more and get back to you. And that's the thing we got to be careful about with the internet, is people can create their own histories, and if we're not careful. So that one, I'm going to do some more checking into that, see if I can find anything actual there. Now, going on further with the question of are they dangerous, my own personal experiences, I have never personally felt unsafe in the woods due to the presence of these beings. And I observed one time from across a creek. It ran away very quickly. It just disappeared into the woods immediately. Okay, before that, I've heard the wood knocks, heard the guttural chattering. I've had small rocks thrown into our camp. 20 years ago, me and a friend of mine, Brian Baker, was down there. We had a very large rock, probably 30 pounds or so, bounced off a tree just outside of camp at about 2 a.m. in the morning. That being said, if it was trying to get us with the rock, it could have just as easily thrown it into our camp instead of outside of our camp. My impression there is it was letting us know that it was there, and it would probably rather us not be. So me personally, I mean, if I felt they were direct hazard or direct threat to me, I would not go out in the woods and solo camp as often as I do. I have personally not felt threatened by them, nor have I experienced acts of aggression by them. And the huge amount of encounters that I've investigated are brief. When they're seen by the person reporting it, they are going the other direction quite quickly. So does that mean they're not dangerous? No, it does not. I am just answering that question by my own experiences. Now, and then there's the other question regarding children. As we know, Mark Copeland, who has the Livewire YouTube channel, he had an incident where he was observing these things come up and watching his children. On a thing like that, I would not second guess their intentions. I would not want to assume that they meant no harm, and I think Mark handled that well, and he, you know, got his kids away from there. So anyway, on that, kids involved, don't second guess any wild creature, whether it be bear or Bigfoot, bobcat, or wolf, whatever it may be. So anyway, that's my answer right now. Are they dangerous? They could potentially be, but in my personal experience and my personal investigations, I have not encountered or witnessed any type of aggression whatsoever, and I'm still going to continue to go out in the woods. I'm still going to continue to solo camp, and honestly, I don't look for any of this to change. So anyway, that's the are they dangerous. So take that for what it's worth. If you have a differing opinion, share it in the comments. Just please be respectful. I'm not trying to rain on anybody else's opinion, okay? So another question that was asked me, have you ever seen a UFO? And that's off the Bigfoot subject, but if you mean UFO as in unidentified flying object, yeah. Back when I was a teenager, me and a group of friends saw a group of lights over the horizon east of the town that I grew up in, and it just happened to be during that same time. This would have been in the early to mid 1980s. There were a lot of UFO sightings. Now that was toward an army or a military base east of where I live, so it could have very well been military aircraft. However, it was unidentified to me and still is to this day. Another question that was asked was, would you ever do another documentary? Well, the one I was on, Bigfootville, that was a lot of fun, and I mean, it was an experience I'll never forget. Hanging out with that film crew from England, they were great. They were just really nice people, treated us respectfully. The documentaries that are on now, I wouldn't want to be a part of one of those because they fall more under the category of sensationalized reality TV shows, and I don't really want to do that. I would do a regular documentary, but personally at this period of time, I'm very happy with the YouTube platform because it allows me to record a documentary or videos as I see fit and express my views, have friends on that I want to, so I can call the shots here. So I'm very content with this platform at the moment. Now, going forward, I hope, like I said, I'm going to do some more solo camping this summer if the rain ever quits. It's been raining solid for a couple of months now, and the places I generally go to are inaccessible at the moment. But Cornell from the No Such Thing podcast, he's planning on coming back down a time or two this summer and into the fall, and us going back into the Kiamichis. John Hodges, who has the YouTube channel Anything Outdoors, he and I went camping in April. Was April, wasn't it? Yeah, it was April, on the Little River, and I hope to get with him and and do that again if everything works out. So anyway, that is it did not start raining on me, and I got to finish this. So I think that's all I wrote down. So anyway, again, are they dangerous? I say potentially, but for the biggest part, and due to what I've investigated, I think they're mostly curious, and a lot of times get seen by accident by somebody. Like one incident that I investigated that led me into this spot that I go a lot was a man on horseback that's seen one 75 or 100 yards ahead of him walk out into the trail, see him, and run back into the woods. Most of them happen like that. So anyway, like I say, got other opinions, other observations of your own, I'd like to hear them. And if you have an encounter you would like to share with me, or perhaps like to have shared on this channel, you can email that to me at bigfootandmore@yahoo.com. That's bigfootandmore@yahoo.com. If you'd like me to share it on this channel, I will. If you don't want me to, I'll just put it in my files for reference. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. So I really can't think of anything else to say. So until next time, you guys all take care.